Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Wednesday, it's November 13th. Today is day 404. I'm still in Jerusalem, and the update on the ground in terms of what's happening in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Lebanon, it's just horrific. A few updates from East Jerusalem and the West Bank. Overnight, I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of an explosion. 5 cars just a block away from where I am in East Jerusalem, Shekshara, were caught on fire. I'm in the heart of East Jerusalem, which is supposed to be one of the safest places in the middle of all of this chaos. In the West Bank, just just today, on November 13th, Israeli forces stormed villages in Ramallah. They stormed the Budris village, and these are incursions by the Israeli military. This is the 4th day Budris has had incursions. In Hebron, Israeli forces invaded Halul city, which is north of the city of Hebron. In Jenin, there were numerous army clashes and incursions, not only in Jenin, but also in Nablus. Palestinian Authority security forces, which are viewed by Palestinians on the ground as being collaborators with the state of Israel, raided a residential building on Jerusalem Street east of Nablus, reportedly shooting tear gas bombs. Israeli forces had incursions east of Nablus. They had an arrest of a citizen after storming his house in the eastern part of the city to put pressure on his son to arrest himself, to surrender himself, because he was wanted for a security incident. There are ongoing operations in Talfit, which is south of Nablus, all the way through the early hours of this morning. Israeli forces also had incursions into that city. In East Jerusalem, Israeli authorities renewed the administrative detention. Administrative detention is when a Palestinian or anyone, but they're held in Israeli prisons without any type of due process. It's a security measure. People can be held for up to 10 years without charges, without due process, without any trial, and administrative detention could be renewed. So Israeli authorities renewed administrative detention for 5 different youths from the Mount of Olives today. Israeli settlers set on fire, as I mentioned, vehicles in the Shekshara neighborhood, and there was a demolition today, which has been a part of ongoing demolitions by Israeli forces in East Jerusalem in the area of Silwan, which is just outside of the old city here. In Gaza, OSHA, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, says Israel has denied or impeded all of its attempts to provide food and healthcare to tens of thousands of people trapped in the besieged North Gaza area so far this month in November. OSHA says there have been 5 mass casualty attacks that have taken place in Gaza City and towns in northern Gaza just between November 4th and November 10th. 5 mass casualty events. Israeli airstrikes killed at least 46 people in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours. And the Palestinian Islamic Jihad militant group yesterday released a new video of an Israeli hostage that's been held for the last 400 plus days in Gaza for more than the past year. Conditions in Gaza have been declared unfit for human survival, says the acting UN relief chief. He told the UN Security Council that yesterday. A Gazan journalist named Hani Mahmoud wrote an article from Deir al-Balah in Al Jazeera about the death of a critically injured girl, which is a part of the silent death that is happening daily in Gaza. At Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah, he wrote, a 9-year-old girl sustained severe injuries 2 days ago when her father and mother were killed in a tent attack. She was the daughter of a journalist who was hit in an overnight attack. She was critically injured alongside of her brother. She was admitted into the operating theater, but this morning, because of the severe injuries and burns she'd sustained from the attack, she was pronounced dead in the past half an hour. This is a part of the silent death that is going on. Many people arrive at the hospital with severe injuries that undergo surgeries in the operating theater, but then they're left without proper medical supplies and pain medication to help them survive those injuries, and they die in silence. I want you to remember I've done these daily videos for more than 400 days. Part of fighting against war and violence is speaking truth, and these are stories that have to be told. This is my daily prayer. In Israel, Well, in response to Israel, Australia amended or lapsed at least 16 defense related Israel export permits in recent weeks. This was in a full review of existing 66 permits. So 16 of 66 permits from Australia have been amended or lapsed. And they will in coming months. Deputy Secretary of Defense explained that such a change can occur under laws that impose requirements due to civilian casualties, referring to what's been happening on the ground here. The Egyptian foreign minister arrived in Beirut as Israeli airstrikes struck near the airport in the past day. His arrival was accompanied by a new shipment of humanitarian assistance to Lebanon. Israel continued to bomb the south suburbs of Beirut as they also issued more evacuation orders. There was a shot of securing a Lebanese ceasefire soon. Biden's senior advisor, Amos Hochstein, reported today. But I'll be honest, in terms of the Biden administration talking about ceasefire deals, I think it feels a little bit like the little boy who just cried wolf. I'm like, show us some progress. And then, at least from my perspective, I'll start to listen. An early foreign policy win as an election present has been promised, or at least there's conversation about this for President-elect Trump from Netanyahu. An Israeli minister had a conversation with President-elect Trump and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend. 3 current and former Israeli officials reported this to the Washington Post. They're hoping to deliver him an early foreign policy win to the president-elect, who is campaigning on ending wars in the Middle East. But the evolving proposal has yet to be presented to Hezbollah, and this could face resistance in Lebanon. In the U.S., President Biden welcomed President Herzog to the White House. He reaffirmed the U.S.'s ironclad commitment to Israel's security. I just think, and we're seeing evidence of this, the U.S.'s weaponizing of Israel is not in the best interest of Israel's security. Israel has largely failed to comply with the Biden administration's 3 core demands on Gaza aid, says an analysis in the Washington Post, based on numerous interviews with humanitarian workers. And the verse that comes to mind from the scriptures for me is Proverbs 13, chapter 13, verse 5, that says, "The righteous hate what is false, but the wicked make themselves a stench and bring shame upon themselves." And that's what I think when I think about the U.S. in this situation. The righteous hate lies. They hate what is false, but they make themselves a stench. They stink. And the U.S. Put together this 30-day requirement that humanitarian aid had to be allowed into Gaza, and they have lifted that pressure on Israel to abide by humanitarian law. They've said they will not suspend military transfers because Israel has made good progress on allowing more aid into Gaza, which is complete and utter bullshit. Last month, Washington set Tuesday as a deadline for Israel to ensure that more food and emergency assistance get into the Strip or face losing aid. And it came out today that nothing is going to happen. Thus, the U.S. is continuing to supply military aid to Israel. They assessed that Israel is not in violation of U.S. law. The State Department announced that today, and the deadline has passed. Right after the U.S. said that Israel's made such good progress, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, yesterday stressed there must be no forcible displacement, nor a policy of starvation in Gaza. So you make sense of this U.S. government for me, please. Secretary of State Blinken today said that Israel failed to live up to all of the U.S. demands to ease civilian suffering in Gaza. So they made great progress on humanitarian assistance, but people are still suffering, adding that the U.S. wants real and extended humanitarian pauses in fighting. I just think the Biden administration, I'll stop there. Yesterday, I wanted to give you some updates on Trump nominations. Pete Hegseth has been nominated for Defense Secretary, and former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee will be the next U.S. ambassador to Israel. Trump also chose John Ratcliffe as the next CIA director. These are all positions that will have significance here in Jerusalem, in Israel, and in Palestine. President-elect Trump also announced his golf partner and real estate investor Stephen Witkoff will be a special envoy to the Middle East. Trump picked Pete Hegseth. I mentioned this. This is what I need you to know about Pete Hegseth. This is the Defense Secretary, Secretary of Defense. He is a veteran and a Fox News host. So his television ally will be running the Pentagon and also leading 1.3 million active troops that are on duty. A couple of really important international updates. Iran has said they're going to postpone the attack on Israel because they want to negotiate with the new president-elect Trump. And Yemen's Houthis on Monday unsuccessfully targeted 2 U.S. Navy ships with multiple drones and missiles. U.S. forces yesterday conducted a second round of strikes on Syria against Iranian-aligned groups in response to further attacks on U.S. personnel in Syria. And Russia has asked Israel to avoid launching attacks on a Syrian base during its war against Hezbollah because of the proximity to Syrian bases next to some of Moscow's assets in Syria. UN peacekeepers warned yesterday that Israel has committed severe violations of the country's ceasefire agreement in Syria. This was following an AP News report that the Israeli military is carrying out a major construction project in the demilitarized zone that separates the Golan Heights from Syria. So that is an update from today. Tomorrow is the weekly update. It'll be longer. I know these updates have been ridiculously long. Kyle will be giving that tomorrow morning live, but I'll do my daily video tomorrow. So God be with you. Continue to pray and work towards peace. Amen.